Health experts describe sickle cell as a blood disorder or group of disorders that leaves red blood cells damaged and unable to carry oxygen to the tissues of the human body. Sickle cell disorder is inherited, and to be born with it, a child has to inherit a copy of the sickle cell gene from both parents. This usually happens when both parents are carriers of the sickle cell gene. On this episode of 30 Minutes, we will hear more about sickle cell from health experts, as well as those living with the disorder. It's good to have you join us on the program. I am Mitaire, Ikpen. I'm sure you already have some questions in mind to ask about the sickle cell disorder. How is it diagnosed? What are the traits, and who are those prone to the disorder? We will know more from this first report by Thomas Mitaire.
To the average person on the street, sickle cell is known as a disease. However, experts note that it is not a disease, but a disorder, and those who experience the disorder should not be called victims or patients, but should be referred to as warriors who are fighting or have won a battle, as the case may be. Let us have an insight on what the average man on the streets of Abuja may know or say about sickle cell.
You know, our genotype is passed from our parents to our dad and our mom. So when they are two different genes, they come together. The child has a particular genotype different. So it's necessary to know your genotype because, as for example, an AA can marry can marry an AA. An AA can also marry an AS. But now an AS has limited options. An AS cannot marry an AS as a male or a female. You need to go for an AA.
No matter how much in love you are with somebody, sickle cell should just be kept out of it because it may do something that no matter what, the person will die prematurely.
I remember when we wanted to get married, and then our church told us that it's a must for us to do the genotypes, and we have to do that. So, in fact, it was the first time I discovered my genotype was AA. So, since then, I will advise people that if they want to get married, not even because of getting married, it's a must for you to know your genotype.
Experts refer to sickle cell as a life-threatening disorder which comes with a lot of complications. It is an inherited blood disorder that affects millions around the world, Nigeria inclusive. It is a genetic condition inherited at conception when a child receives two sickle cell genes, one from each parent.
Sickle cell anemia is quite different from sickle cell disease. So sickle cell disease and its variants are genetic disorder resulting in the absence of a mutation of hemoglobin. While sickle cell disease is an inherited disorder where the individual has hemoglobin X, a homozygous hemoglobin X, thereby having a HBSS. That is sickle cell anemia.
People will understand that genetic is something that you cannot help. It comes from birth, so it makes the body not to be functioning the way it should have been functioning. And so there are certain things that make one to produce blood in the body. It's called red blood cell. So when that person is born, the red blood cell that's supposed to be in a particular form didn't come out in that particular form. It's not the problem of the child.
It's in the blood. It has to do with the gene. And the gene now comes with the sickle. It's like an else. That is where we got the name of sickle cell from it. And mainly, it has destruction with the red blood cells. Where after that, you have some pains within your joints and there's reduction in your blood level.
Doris is a sickle cell warrior alongside all her siblings. Patience is another warrior whose parents lost over 6 children to sickle cell before and after her birth. There are so many warriors like Doris and Patience who have different stories to tell about growing up with the disorder and the pains that come with it, which they note is indescribable across board.
I don't see it as a disease. I just see it as another genotype. Just a genotype where you have to take more caution about your day-to-day activities. And yes, during my younger days, I couldn't play with my friends as much as I wanted to because I had to take steps and measures as not to miss school and stuff like that. And then my some of my friends or some people I met along the way, they were not as receptive as one would think because of the ignorance. But I think the biggest challenge is trying not to be like dealing with your mental health. And once you have God on your side and you follow the rules, there's really nothing to it. It's just a way of life where you have to take certain precautions.
Nobody knew. As a child, when it's raining, I want to enter. Immediately I enter rain. As I'm coming out of the rain, I'm coming out of the rain with crisis. Everywhere, the crisis will be so severe that everybody will be restless. Do you understand? So I will tell them on no condition must children with SS genotype enter rain during rainy season.
Growing up with it has been pain. When you have a crisis, of course, you go through excruciating pain. And so you have to limit yourself and try to manage yourself properly to avoid having crisis. I've also had, my major problem has also been the osteomyelitis, infection of the bone. And that has been my major challenge. I have not been anemic as a sickle cell warrior because we all pass through one. It differs from one warrior to the other. The complications differs.
Experts and sickle cell warriors are of the opinion that the best way to prevent the disorder is by formalizing newborn screening and knowing your sickle cell disorder status early enough. They emphasize marrying based on genotype compatibility.
The best process is to test before marriage. This hematopoietic is not a surgery. It's just an infusion. It's only that a lot, if they use it for treatment of Hodgkin disease, a lot of carcinoma are being treated with it. It's only that it needs a required skill.
Most men I have come across are always AS, and of course that marriage has to be kept aside. So living with it is a major challenge in terms of us getting married and giving birth. But there are lots of us that have been lucky and they live a relatively normal life. They get married and give birth to children as well. So also carriers are advised, people that have AS, for example, or AC, are advised not to get married to each other. But you see the AA is the super gene that can actually get married to, even if you have sickle cell or you have a carrier gene. AAs are the best match to make. So I advise people to actually go out there, make informed choices. If you know your genotype, try and know your partner's genotype before even getting further in the relationship, before using love as an excuse to damn all consequences.
Although people perceive that sickle cell disorder warriors are liable to die young with short life expectancy, health experts say otherwise. They explain that a sickle cell warrior can live up to 80 and 100 years and beyond as long as he or she lives by the rules.
I've had when I was in school, I had a lecturer that taught me hematology. I think he was about 72 and he was still very strong. There's this lady, Joanne, in US. She's 83. I think she's the oldest warrior in the world. So there is no age limit to your survival rates.
It's no longer a death sentence per se. There are warriors who are about 90 years plus or even more. So I think it's a good start with medicine. We're heading somewhere now. So sickle cell warriors live a relatively normal life.
According to some, early screening for sickle cell disorder coupled with antibiotics by 3 months of age, immunization, disease-modifying therapies, and routine medical care are recommended.
And we also have an apheresis machine. What apheresis machine does is a machine that helps reduce the number of sickle cell in a sickle cell patient. So it's a rare cell exchange procedure where a warrior comes in, a warrior that has had multiple crises, multiple blood transfusion, because blood transfusion on its own has its own challenges. They come down with iron overload due to multiple transfusion. So when they come down with this, you can't give them blood again. In as much as they need blood, you can't keep giving them a whole blood. So what the machine does is, we get a normal HbA patient, that's one with normal genotype. We get the blood, transfuse it for the sickle cell patient, then extract the sickled cell blood in the sickle cell patients and discard.
There is advocacy for governments, NGOs, international donors, and media houses and other stakeholders to step up awareness campaigns to all nooks and crannies of Nigeria to avoid marrying a partner with the wrong genotype.
They are serious with tuberculosis. They are serious with malaria. They are serious with what do they call it? HIV/AIDS. Why this sickle cell? Every minute, every now and then, millions are dying in the society.
I will solicit for help for them from government, because most of them go for this infusion, blood transfusion. They don't have money.
The consensus is that early diagnosis, taking recommended medication regularly, and avoiding too hot or cold environments as often as possible will help those with the disorder.
Quite some touching stories in that report by Thomas Mitaire. In our next report, Lydia Sampson will tell us more about the prevalence of the sickle cell disorder in Nigeria, as well as preventive measures.
Nigeria accounts for 100,000 to 150,000 newborns living with sickle cell disease annually, which is about 33% of the global figure. This means that Nigeria occupies a strategic position in the epidemiology of sickle cell disease from the global perspective. As a result, we see shouting headlines like, I quote, Nigeria, global epicenter of sickle cell, not doing enough to tackle the disease, end of quote. Health expert says these staggering statistics do not speak well of Nigeria in the Committee of Nations.
The normal shape of a red blood cell is round. So for people with sickle cell, it becomes abnormal. That means the shape becomes a C shape, and that's what we call the sickle. So when it's a C shape, becomes hard, it becomes sticky. So when they pass through these blood vessels, they could clog the blood vessels, which causes the pain crisis that they always have. Even with the abnormal red blood cell, they don't tend to live. They don't live long.
The bone marrow produces red blood cells, not only only red blood, also white blood cells that fight against infection. So the bone marrow will be unable to produce those things, and thereby landing them, or they will have what to call complications called infection. They will have infection because the bone marrow will be unable to produce the red blood cells.
An estimated 150,000 babies are born with sickle cell anemia annually, the most common form of sickle cell disease, and Nigeria takes almost half of the share of more than 300,000 babies with severe hemoglobin disorders born globally each year. Experts say disparities in awareness, knowledge, perception, and cultural practices with respect to pre-genetic counseling in the multi-ethnic groups that make up Nigeria has been identified to be a critical factor.
The management is focused on the prevention of the pain, or how we manage the pain. So this, when it becomes abnormal, that we tend to have a lot of complications, infection, acute chest syndrome, the anemia we're talking about, even the pain that they feel is the major, is what we call the crisis. Very, very excruciating because I've had the opportunity to manage a lot of our patients that have this sickle cell. When you see them in pain, you will almost want to cry for them because it's very, very severe. So when we're talking about the prevention of the treatment, we tend to tell them to avoid extreme weather that is either too cold or too hot. Even with exercises, we tell them not to do vigorous exercises because when you exercise, the heat, there's they become overheat. So that's also the extreme temperature we're talking about. We tell them to always hydrate.
The two blood hemoglobin variants, SS and SC, were the commonest sickle cell disease hemoglobin variants found in Nigeria.
Oh, okay. I think the problem is awareness on the grassroots. If we, because when you go down to the grassroots, notice that most of them don't even know what they should do before marriage. So there is no proper awareness down to the grassroots. People in town listen to television, so they hear little or small about. But people in rural areas where there is no televisions, no access to any form of information, they don't know anything about this. They don't even know what to do. So when you talk about it, it sounds so odd in their ear. So I think the proper thing to start from is awareness first.
Health expert says sickle cell anemia can lead to many complications such as stroke, acute chest syndrome, pulmonary hypertension, organ damage, blindness, leg ulcers, pregnancy complications, among others. For instance, it is believed that sickle cells can block blood flow to an area of brain, igniting signs of stroke such as seizures, weaknesses or numbness of arms and legs, sudden speech difficulties, and loss of consciousness. The irony is that sickle cell disease can actually be prevented if only intending couples would take a step towards knowing their genotype before marrying and having children. The question is, how many people test their genotype and are willing to let go of the love of their lives for future healthy generations?
One of the things I think they need to know is maybe, for example, I think I've just used a life scenario that maybe I've handled. It's just to show them one patient that is suffering from sickle cell. I have opportunity to nurse a family that have all his children are sickle cell. And the wife ran away and the man comes to the hospital maybe when this one is discharged in the evening, the next person comes in. So once the person encounter one of these persons and see what the father is going through, maybe the father can even be a good advisor to the person because he knows what he's going through, because his finance is crippled, his lifestyle is crippled, his life is in the hospital.
Medical expert speaks further on how sickle cell disease can be prevented and avoided. They emphasize the likely consequence of marrying without doing a genotype test.
Even when you start courting or dating, you should do this test genotype. I don't think it's expensive, so it will tell you you're either AA, AS, you have the ASC or the AC, because we don't want the joining together of parents that have AS and the other you love of your life is AS, or AC that is trying to get married to SC. So this test is very, very essential because you won't want to see your children go through this pain.
For families experiencing sickle cell challenges and how traumatic the experience can be, there is simply no alternative to knowing one's genotype. Medical experts who help in management of the severe pains sickle cell disease inflict on patients says it is unimaginable.
I was opportune to serve in one of the PAC in Anambra, that is a rural area in Anambra, and then that's when I started noticing there is gap in passing this information, because it's only on maybe if there is immunizations that you see trials go out. They don't really go out on this sensation, on this, like this month is one of the days is for what sickle cell. What they should have done is to employ one of these days, take it down to the grassroots and involve the village town halls, the town criers. Even if they don't go house to house, they can gather people in a field and then educate them on the importance of this marital text.
But it starts with individuals and awareness. And I think we're already making progress with that. A lot of people are now more educated than before. And we're hopeful that with the awareness, more people would, stand their ground and make the right decision to, when, especially when you have the trait, that is where the problem comes from. When two people have the trait, the when they get together, despite all odds, despite the counseling, they tend to have these children. But then when these children come with the pain and the crisis they suffer, the love is no longer as strong as it used to be. And then seeing your child in pain is just the worst thing. Feeling helpless, you can't do anything for your child. That's just the worst pain ever. So I think with that, more people are beginning to take and make the right decision.
They are emphatic that all key players, from government, religious leaders, elites, politicians, especially traditional leaders at the grassroots, must do more in awareness creation.
Anybody wants to get married, go and do comprehensive istihara from Islamic point of view. And that istihara is ask God which one will be the best for you, that you will not have problem on it in this life and in the hereafter. Among your istihara is the medical test. You want to see whether you are compatible or not compatible, whether you'll be able to have children or you not be able, whether you are going to have children that will be sick or children that will not be sick. So when you do that, you actually follow the injunction of God. Please, when you want to get married, find what is God's decision on what you want to do, so that you will not be living in pain.
Whether you are getting married or not, most especially those who are of marriageable age, you should know your genotype. And having known your genotype, you have wisdom, you have knowledge. And armed with this knowledge, if you are in a relationship with somebody and you are considering getting serious, you want to know the person's genotype. And if not, if the person's genotype is the type that you have the chances of giving birth to sickle cell children, you want to give it very serious thought and reconsider your decision. In churches, we should seek opportunities. Number one, get medical personnel to come and educate people. And if it's possible, get even those who are sicklers, who are in the church, to come and share their experiences.
There are more people in the rural areas that don't even know how to test before getting married. In fact, if you go to the local towns, you realize that people are together without knowing anything about blood tests. They get married. In fact, some don't get married. They cohabit and then have a lot of children. And this is very common with us developing, as a nation. But the government has to do more. Give some of these people the tests to do free. Let them just come. Let's check it. We that know what we're looking for. Because some of these people who have the traits don't even know that they have it. So when they have the kids, they only get to know that my child has pain. But they don't know that it's their blood condition or it's their trait that made this child have this. And this is a lifelong condition.
I know that the love is so sweet. They want to marry the person they love, they understand and all that. But the end is what we are talking about. It won't last. So it's better you just get it now, save yourself the stress, save your money and save your kids, unborn kids.
I think government should pay more attention on creating awareness, or just like I said, then maybe employ more people to the grassroots, so that this awareness can be created over and over.
They are hoping that with all hands on deck, sickle cell disease can begin the shared journey to eradication.
Some sayings readily come to mind, such as to obey is better than sacrifice and prevention is better than cure. Knowing your genotype is important in order to reduce the prevalence of the sickle cell disorder in Nigeria and around the world. That's where we leave it on the program today. Join us next week for a fresh episode. I am Mitaire Ikpen. Thanks for watching.